Broadcasting from the Any Hour Services podcast studios, I'm your host, Mike Wilson, and on this episode of In the House, we're actually back with another episode of Who's in the House. Stick around. If you ever wondered what happens when I push the button, that's what happens when I push the button.
It's easy.
The music plays. It's that was the concept, is like, we need a button, like the easy button, and they sell them online where you can record whatever you want in the button.
That's cool.
But that's good. You already know that In the House is a podcast about the major systems in the house: electrical, plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. But we wanted to get to know more about the men and women who work on those systems, the tradespeople that keep our homes safe and comfortable. And that's why we're calling this series within the podcast Who's in the House. Our guest today is Dan Sorenson. Dan, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Really good.
Good. Well, why don't we just start? Introduce yourself the way you would introduce, if you had millions of people listening and you knew that, they would want to know who you are.
They want to know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm Dan. So my background, I've been in the industry for heating and air conditioning for 25 years. I got into it because of a high school teacher.
Really?
Yeah. He got me, he says, what's your plans? I didn't have a plan and was getting married right out of high school. And so he sat me down and said, let's get you a good job.
Huh.
And so he got me pointed in the right direction to college, and I ended up in college for heating and air conditioning.
That's awesome. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up right here in Pleasant Grove.
Yeah.
And on a small farm, and it was a good area.
It's changed a little bit since
just a bit.
You were in high school, huh?
Just a bit. It used to be a lot of farm fields, and now it's a lot of houses.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's hard to actually, everybody that wants a house in Pleasant Grove, they're just waiting for all those leftover orchards to be sold off and developed.
Very many.
No, there's not very many left.
Yep.
Yeah. So married, single?
Married, have 5 kids.
5 kids. Nice.
Yeah.
Boys, girls?
Boys, 1 boy, 4 girls.
How old are they? They out of the house now?
Well, I've got 3 out of the house, or 2 out of the house, and no, I got 3 out of the house.
Okay.
And then 2 still at home. And I've got 1 grandbaby and 1 on the way.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So do you live in Pleasant Grove now, or have you moved out of Pleasant Grove?
No, I moved out of Pleasant Grove. I currently live down by Fairview at a small town called Milburn, and have a family farm again.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I enjoy it.
So how big is your little family farm?
We have 17 acres.
Really?
With a cabin.
That's
we live
awesome.
there. It's really nice. Ricky gives me a really hard time that the cows are out, because occasionally the cows are out.
How? What do you farm there?
We've got some cows. We have some sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Just small. It's fun, family hobby.
Is it just for your own personal, like that's your food storage, or do you actually slaughter and sell?
No, right now it's just personal.
Personal.
Yeah.
With sheep, do you shear the sheep and collect the wool?
That's the intent. This is the first year we're going to try that.
Okay.
It was Grandma's deal to some extent. She lives with us as well, my mother-in-law. And her dad was a sheep herder years ago, long story, down in Torrey. So this year I bought her some bummer lambs. So this last year. And so we're just trying sheep. And we don't really have a total game plan with them yet. But we'll probably share the 2 that we have, and as far as come spring, and then just see where it goes from there.
When you shear sheep, do you have to have a buyer of the wool, or is that something you guys are going to just kind of collect? I have no idea at this point yet. It's kind of one of those things I probably shouldn't have got into without a plan, but we did. We'll have to do a follow-up episode and find out how the sheeping's going.
That's right.
Okay. So you mentioned that, in high school, you didn't really have a plan, and you had a teacher that, kind of got you on that track. Let's back up a little bit before that. Before you spoke to that teacher, you didn't have a plan, but did you ever think about, hey, here's what I might want to do when I grow up? Did you ever have those kinds of thoughts?
Well, I really enjoyed welding in high school.
Okay.
And so I was leaning more towards farming, agricultural. I was in the FFA. I was
too.
Really?
I was.
Cool.
I grew up in Georgia, and I was in the FFA. And, well, back then it was the Future Farmers of America. I guess nowadays it's like Future for Agriculture or something.
I haven't heard.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I was in the FFA. That was a lot of fun. We did cow breed identification. I competed in some of the little competitions. Did you compete?
Yeah, I did the agricultural side of it with meat judging, livestock judging, and then I also did the agricultural tests for the welding and the mechanics and stuff like that.
Interestingly enough, that when I think back coming up, that was my first introduction to the trades, because I got my start as an electrician, and I remember in high school, Mr. Bridges was his name,
Sure.
And I remember this they had a wall framed up in the ag room, and they had boxes and things, and we learned about hooking up outlets and making the loop and stripping and twisting it so that it pulled it in on itself. But was your ag room similar, where you got to do a lot of different things, or did you pick welding because that was a class in and of itself?
That was in a class of itself. My teacher was Mr. Evans. I got to give him credit because he did get me in this trade. But as far as they did have test questions, we learned about electrical and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But my more focus was he had a class on welding, and I loved it. I enjoyed that a lot. Not that I had a lot of projects to build, but I did a lot of livestock panels.
Sure. That
we welded up, just that he let us high school students weld up.
That's awesome.
But I did enjoy it a lot. I was leaning towards those careers, something with my hands.
I always got the impression in FFA when we would go and do those projects that Mr. Bridges was like, well, I got all this free labor. I got some projects that need to get done.
We did some pretty cool projects. A couple of the guys in the shop did horse trailers where they built one for him. I mean, it was cool. We did some fun projects.
How convenient. He's like, I could use a horse trailer. I got an idea for a project. Submit it to the school board.
That's right. That's
awesome.
Yeah, it was way fun.
So is that the teacher that got you into the trades, or talk to me a little bit more. So you thought you were going to be a welder. How do you go from welding to, have you always been in HVAC? Is that the trade you chose to make a career out of?
No. Well, as far as long story.
That's okay. Hey, we got a podcast. No time restrictions here.
So as far as my long story, my dad was killed when I was 14 in an auto accident. And so I didn't, I was leaning towards following him. He was a chemist with a gold mine. They call it a fire assayer, where they evaluate the shipment of gold and how much gold's in the shipment. So I was leaning towards that, but I did not like chemistry in high school.
Gotcha.
And so I didn't go that route. But when I was my senior year, Mr. Evans was talking to me, and he says, what's your plan? And I really didn't have a plan. I was thinking of going up to Utah State. They have a great, amazing agriculture program for mechanics. So I was leaning towards that, and he says, okay, you're getting married at the end of high school. And I says, yeah, that's my plan. That's the only plan I had. But as far as he sat me down and said, okay, there's a college in, one of my former students had done it, or his former student had done it, gone into heating and air conditioning with big demand, lots of hours, very decent pay, stuff that way. So he says, you really ought to consider it. I did, okay, I'm open to it. How do I do it? And so he got me kind of down that path of how to do heating and air conditioning, which is a great trade. It's amazing. I had two of my nephews do it.
Sure.
So I've enjoyed it. I've introduced them to it. Love the trade. We deal with everything, plumbing, electrical, gas, furnaces, air conditioners. So I really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. So you were, you were saying that it was going to be a long story, like that it meandered from the welding to getting into the trade. But
sure.
Like at what point in high school did Mr. Evans, you say, at what point did he say like, hey, HVAC is probably a better route than welding? Or was it that he was just saying, here's another option and you liked it better?
Probably here's another option you may want to consider. I needed income fairly quickly after getting married, and he kind of sat down and gave a budget with me and stuff. And so he said, well, here's another option to get you in and out of school quick with an entry-level position. I got an associate's degree in a year, and so it was pretty cool to come out of school. There's other routes of doing that. I've learned later that, you can have companies help you get your college education if you want to go down that path, or in-house training for, say, but it was kind of an option he presented to me and said, hey, look, you can get in and out of college fast and be working while being married that I hadn't considered.
Sure. So when I think of welding nowadays, I mean, welding's a demand job. Like there's, it's a good job for people that want to get into the trades that like that.
Sure.
Was welding not as high of a demand, or the pay wasn't as good as HVAC?
No, it's probably still about the equal as far as demand and pay scale. I still do a fair amount of welding, even though, I mean, we weld refrigerant lines, we braze. So it's still in that same scenario.
So, sorry, what I mean is like back then when you were in high school, like I'm wondering, like if your teacher sat you down and was like, hey, what's your plan? Here's a faster way. Was it just faster to get HVAC certified? Or I guess I'm trying to understand
how did it
why.
go from welding to HVAC? I'm not 100% sure, but as far as the just a different avenue that he presented.
That's cool.
And I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know what I didn't go research a lot of the structure for the welding side, but I'm sure it's a big demand.
Sure.
You're doing a lot of construction. You're doing stuff like that. Whereas heating, air conditioning is a really big demand as well. Mm-hmm. Very market economy proof.
Sure.
I would say everybody's got a furnace.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants an AC.
Yep.
And I won't give mine away either.
It's true. Once you have it, like, and it's hard to lend that air conditioner that's attached to the house.
Yeah, Grandma never had one, but I'll tell you what, I won't give mine away.
When I moved into my first house that we bought, it had a swamp cooler because the house was built in like 30s.
Sure.
And so it had a swamp cooler in the front room. And so front room wasn't where we slept. Right. And so you'd turn the swamp cooler on, and then you'd set up a series of box fans to try and, encourage the air to move to where you were to get it comfortable. And I think that first summer we decided we were going to add an air conditioner because it had a forced air furnace. So we just added an air conditioner onto it. But
absolutely.
Okay. So you say you went to your college. Where'd you go to college?
I went to UTI down in Arizona.
Okay. So Arizona. So did you go out of state for college? Because you said you grew up in Utah on a family farm.
I did.
Okay. So this was out of state college experience for you?
Yeah. Whoa, that was a wide opening waking experience. Moving out first time, stuff like that. So it was interesting.
Were you nervous to leave home?
Oh yeah.
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 So was this something that your parents encouraged you to do? Like, hey, this will be good for you, or like what prompted that if you didn't want to leave home?
Well, and that was okay. It was a good life-changing experience. But I was open to it, and the time frame to get in, get done, get quick, get out.
Gotcha.
Worked out really, really well.
So when you went to college, did they offer a technical degree in HVAC, or did you think to yourself, oh, I need a college degree of some kind, and you did college and HVAC? Like, talk me through that.
So they offered a associate's degree in the class of study. So as far as instance, yes, I went and studied HVAC, and
Gotcha.
So they give you an associate's degree in that, which opened a lot of doors for me at that time. I had probably 20 different career fields that I could pursue through that, but I chose to move back home. Like I said, Arizona's got a lot of heat. I could have stayed there real easy, but I chose to come back home. And bulk of my career, I've chose to do residential. I've done a little bit of commercial, industrial, stuff like that, but I've really enjoyed residential.
Okay. So you get back home. Talk to me about what, did you have a job lined up when you got home? Were you married at this time? Like out of high school, got married, and y'all both went to college?
Got married. We went, long story. I got divorced while I was there.
Okay.
Or separated, and then moved back. And that's part of moving back was to get that all squared back away. Moved back, and I had a couple of job interviews before the college was really good to get us job positions. When I moved back, and got a job lined up before I got back, and moved back home. Started right in the field as an entry level technician. with 1 year experience per se, but a lot of book knowledge, but not a lot of hands-on yet. And so I went through, at that point, I continued my education and went for the journeyman's degree in HVAC, and just started with the local company, had an apprenticeship program. They set it up where I was still going to school and still learning in the field. That's where I got the hands-on. It was really good.
So was it a technical school at that point that had that, or was it another one of those, the college was offering a more advanced degree in HVAC studies?
So that one I went through U of U. Okay. And they did a branch program with the apprenticeship program, HVAC only. So I was still studying HVAC, and which is heating, air conditioning, ventilation.
Sure.
But anyway, as I did that, I just was able to continue on and get a 4-year college degree at that time. They've reduced it down into 2 years now. But I did that. But that's through a different program, not through the college anymore.
Were you working at day, going to school at night?
Yes. So I was going to school 3 days a week. Okay. And working full time.
So this first job that you had, what was it? Was it new construction? Were they a service company? Tell me.
They were a service company here local. They did new construction and residential service.
What year was this? Are we talking?
Oh, boy. That was 22 years ago.
22 years. So
years ago.
98, 99,
90,
96, 97,
96, 95.
95
is when I started for them.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that was a while ago.
That's 26 years.
Right? It's been a while ago.
Time's flying, man.
Yeah, that's right. 26 this year.
Okay, so they did service and new construction. So as a new guy getting into the trade, what you mentioned, you're like, I had a lot of book knowledge, not a lot of hands-on technical knowledge. What was the difference? And tell me about that experience when you first got in and then started like having to apply the stuff that you knew.
They had a great program. They had equipment. We troubleshooted stuff like that, but it wasn't, I mean, it was all set up. So it was still just troubleshooting it at their shop, stuff like that. And you learned a lot of the book information. Excuse me. They had a great program. And as we went through there, then we came out and you went and saw how it all goes in. So I did a lot of installing for a year of how the equipment gets installed, how you add on an air conditioning, how they run line sets in people's homes and set it up if you don't have any. I did a lot of tune-ups, but a lot of new construction. So they'd go in. I more helped change out equipment on existing equipment that wears out and stuff that way for the first year. And then after that, I was tune-up service, stuff that way.
So how was it when you went and ran your first service call by yourself? Were you nervous?
Oh, boy, I was scared to death.
It was just a tune-up that you were going.
I can still remember this 26 years ago.
Tell us about it. That's fun. Sounds fun.
It was a no-heat call. It was in December. I don't remember the customer's house. I just remember being a little bit nervous, a little bit scared. But I had a lot of experience. I had a lot of knowledge. It was just a matter of, okay, what am I going to run into? Not for say that I haven't seen a lot of equipment. It was just, okay, what am I up against? But I was quite nervous. But I was, you push through the fear and you go do it.
So nothing popped up and had you there for a really long time?
I call that the school of hard knocks. I don't remember, like I said, I don't remember what I ran into that very first call. But I remember being really nervous, but I'm going, okay, I'm going to go do it anyway.
So at what point did the nerves go away? Like, did you start to feel more comfortable?
Oh, I would say to the point that I felt comfortable seeing anything or servicing anything or being able to really figure stuff out was about 4 years. For me. It took a while. Part of that is you got every 6 months you're working on air conditioners and then you're working on furnaces.
Makes sense.
So 6 months you forget what you did the last 6 months, at least my short-term memory of the time frame. It was hard to bring that around and be able to, oh yeah, I remember what I did, and we still get the old age cobwebs, but it knocked those out again and, oh yeah, I'm good. So it's getting easier, but it was 4 years for me to where I could be, but I was thrown at a lot of different stuff between that time frame. So as far as just jumping around a little bit, company-wise, the company got bought out by a really big national company, and I like to stay small, so I went to another company and just continued working, got my degree, But for them, I just installed air conditioners and ran service
For the second company?
for the second company.
So, excuse me, when your first service company was bought, did you leave immediately, or did you wait to see if it was going to like be a different feel?
I gave them a shot, but I didn't give them probably a fair enough shot. I left pretty early. And their philosophy to me was way different than what we were doing, and so I left and went with a smaller company. They weren't doing any new construction or anything that way, and I liked that aspect, so I went and stayed new construction, and so I was installing air conditioners, and then I was their only service guy. So I was really stuck. I didn't have anybody to ask, and so I had to call a lot of factory guys, get a lot of extra help, but it was great for me because that's the way I learned.
Sure.
And so I learned a lot of just figure it out.
So what does that continued education look like? I mean, is most of your education just come on the job and asking guys that are more experienced, or was there a set way to improve your skills?
Well, and the Merry Christmas answer to that is you're not done. The more you learn, the more you need to learn. And 25, 26 years of doing this, I still run into stuff that I learn every day. I call it the continuing education for a lifetime.
There you go.
Because you get new products that come out, just like new cars, new vehicles. You got to learn the new stuff, as well as trying to work on grandma's old air conditioner or furnace that's 40, 50 years old still, and stuff that way. So it's a matter of you learn the old stuff and you get integrated to the new stuff, because technology is always changing. So we're just continuing learning.
How have you seen the industry, the technology of the equipment? How have you seen that change from when you got into the game 26 years ago? Because when you got into it 26 years ago, you were working on systems that were 30 years old. And so, like, talk to me about how you've seen it change.
Well, it has changed exponentially as far as across the board. When I first got in, we were still playing with standing pilot light furnaces. The new stuff was automatic ignition, but just the efficiency level going from the old system to the new system is like trying to, you're driving grandpa's old truck to now you're driving a fully fuel injected vehicle. I mean, it's just in the same comparison. It's just night and day different. And the problems that we run into a lot for service calls are just, you're almost hooking to a computer to the new furnace to say, okay, what is wrong with you? Because there's so many controls and stuff that way that I laugh. Years ago, when I first went to college, I didn't necessarily want a computer degree. I sure have one now.
Do you have furnaces and air conditioners gotten to the point where they actually have, like on cars, where they have like a port you can like plug something in and it like runs a diagnostic? It's almost like, oh, there's a check engine light. What does that mean? What does this code mean? Is it to that point yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of them have self-diagnosis or troubleshooting air code lights, stuff like that. But what is causing it to lock out? They've got self-diagnosis lights, which is way easier to work on than the ones that didn't.
Right. I'm assuming that the systems are also like cars. Like, when you get into a car repair on a car that's like got a lot of computer components in it, it starts to get more expensive to work on those newer units than maybe the older units where, I've got an old, 1980s Jeep where I can essentially crawl inside with the engine and everything is just turning wrenches and things like that. But like with the newer ones, it's all computerized. So are the parts and components, if it's more complicated, does that make the system more expensive to work on? For
working and repairs, yes. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of computer controls. You're dealing with a lot of software designs, upgrades, stuff that way that it does tend to make those repairs a lot more expensive because they're a lot more efficient. And with the computer controls, the efficiency's quite higher, a lot higher than the older systems, but that also can throw some very unique breakdowns down the road as far as more complicated diagnosis or troubleshooting.
I'm assuming with all those electronics and things that newer systems are more prone to damage from surges and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're very susceptible to surges. as far as the newer components.
So do those fancy systems, do they come with some type of, power cleaning system, or do you have to put a surge protector on each one? Like how's that?
I totally recommend putting a surge protector on every unit. They're not set up that way. As far as the manufacturer doesn't sell their product with one on it. It's an aftermarket product that we put on the unit just to help protect the surges from the electricals.
Well, okay, so you're in the industry. You have been for a while. You worked for a company. It was sold. You went to another company, and the second company that you went to, were you saying that they did a lot of new construction? So you were doing installs of air conditioners, and you were the only service guy. So how does your career progress from there?
So, boy, that's a long story too.
That's all right. We got time.
So I stayed with them for 8 years. They were in the Valley. They went through the hiccup of 2001. So we did the Y2K thing with them. And so I stayed there 8 years. They ended up going through a really bad economy because it was all new construction. They ended up going bankrupt. So, but I loved it. I stayed with them 8 years. I loved the employer at the time. They taught me a lot. And so I built my service career there. Like I said, I ran into a lot of factory reps that helped give me the schooling and the hands-on. That's where I completed my journeyman's degree, was with them. And then I was pursuing other careers in the financial realm of stuff for a little while.
So you were thinking about getting out of the trades?
I was for a little bit, as far as just trying to make more money like everybody else, chasing money. But got some good advice from them to stick with it, get my degree and stay with it. They ended up going bankrupt, but they was a very, very good new construction company.
So at any point, did you think to yourself, okay, these people that just told me, stick with this, there's good money, it's a good option, and then they go bankrupt, did you ever think like, is it really that good?
Well, a little bit more of what caused them to go bankrupt, and or just the economy was really bad at the time. I'm not saying that was it, because everybody's got a furnace. It was some of their limitations of marketing stuff that way, but it was a really hard economy. So I don't judge them for any reason. They were great employers.
Yeah, no, I don't know that you necessarily like. I didn't mean that like you were judging them, but like I'm just wondering if you were if you were having doubts about the economic bulletproofness of this trade.
It does have its ups and downs.
Yeah.
I'm totally honest. We are seasonal with the heating and air conditioning. You've got the spike through the winter. You got the spike through the summer. In the shoulder seasons, we call it, through spring and fall, you're slow. Career-wise, I've been laid off multiple times through the spring, through January, February, March. I love working for any hour. We haven't been slow. It's been amazing to see the carrying the guys, and just more steady work than the ups and downs. Summer, winter, I always tell my wife, see you later. I'll see you in the spring. But yeah, it's
got to make hay while the sun shines. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So you're with this company for 8 years, and you're thinking about getting out of the trades. What happens next? Where did you go after that?
So after that, I ended up with a really small company, and I bounced around a little bit.
Sure.
So I've kind of got a good feel for the industry. But I went with a really small company, and I stayed with him for another year. And great guy. He chose to do something different, so he went driving truck.
So he shut his company down.
He shut his company down.
Okay.
And then I ended up, he was doing not new construction. He was just doing a lot of just retrofits, changing out existing equipment. But then I ended up with a smaller company, about the same size company in the Valley. I worked for them a little bit for probably 5 more years. And they were a great company to work for, but they had the seasonal up and down. It was, I was one of 2 service technicians at the time.
Was that company strictly service, or were they also doing a mix of?
They were pretty much service. They weren't too much new construction, so it kind of got away from the new construction up and down bubble. Stayed with them.
Went from the new construction up and down bubble to the seasonal up and down bubble of service.
Right. And so I stayed with him on and off for about 5 years there.
Is that one of those where you were saying like, they'd lay me off in the spring and bring me back when it got busy again?
Yeah, so that was up and down there. Work got really slow through 2008 on that one.
Mm.
So I ended up I ended up at the state of Utah for a while and worked for them in their facility maintenance programs. That's where I learned my industrial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing to work for. That was tough the pay structure was a little lower than where I was currently at. And when he'd get busy, I'd work for him as well. So it was kind of on and off. But so then they changed practices again. And so when
the company
when I was working for him, yes. When I was working for the state of Utah, I was having a hard time. So I was having to work 2 jobs working there for them. Nothing against the state of Utah.
Sure.
But I learned a lot of industrial stuff there. They've got some amazing people there. And so I worked there for a while, and then I worked back in full-time for the other guy. They changed their philosophies and programs, and so I looked at other opportunities to leave, and so I ended.
When you say they changed their philosophy and programs, can you explain what that means?
Well, as far as not to throw them under the bus by any means.
Well, we haven't said anybody's name. And we're not saying that was necessarily a bad decision for them, but I'm just wondering what happened where you were like, okay, that doesn't fit with who I am. And how do you change if you're running service? What did the philosophy look like through your eyes? I know that you didn't have the behind the scenes of the ownership or whatever, but through your eyes, what was the philosophy before, and what was the change of philosophy that like turned you off?
Well, I felt like they were trying to retire the owner very, very quickly, and so our price went way sky high. He brought a partner in, and they did a lot of knee jerk, in my opinion, of we're going to try this, we're going to try that kind of thing. Not that that was wrong.
Sure.
It was just they're like, whoa, wait, what are we doing? At that point, I chose to leave.
How many technicians were at that company at the time?
Probably about 25.
And was everyone having the same kind of feeling, or was this just something like you were the only one that was having an issue with it?
A lot of the main guys that were there, they lost about 8 of us within 3 months.
Just because like the price. So was it that the price jumped way up from where you were and you guys were like, I don't agree with this?
Well, we felt like we needed to sell to every customer, whether they needed it or not. And so philosophy was, and that may not be what they were trying to portray to us, but that's the way I felt.
That's what you picked up from.
Yeah. And so as far as, so we left, like I said, about 8 of us left in 3-month time frame.
Okay.
That's where I ended up here.
That's how you got here.
Brady introduced me here as a referral.
Okay, so let's talk about that journey specifically. So when you were working at that other company, did you leave and then find here, or were you like, I think I'm going to go, and you lined something up before you bounced?
Oh, no, I had 3 job offers before I came in and talked to Wyatt.
Okay, so
he wasn't interviewing me, I was interviewing him.
Sure, but that's always how it goes, right?
Right.
If you're doing it right, everyone, you got to look at these as you're being interviewed.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's too many options out there. But what I'm saying is, when you were at this other company, it's this way now, but I'm wondering if it was this way before. Were you constantly being approached by people like trying to get you to come and work for them?
Oh yeah. So our industry is dog eat dog. I mean, as far as even still, I've had other people, hey, come work for us.
Gotcha. So when you were at this other company and you were happy, people were coming at you, but you didn't have like a compelling reason to leave. Then you were like, okay, I see us going a different path. I'm having some disagreements with the way that the company is being run. Now, all of a sudden, when people come to you, it's sounding more appealing, or did you start reaching back out to those people that had reached out to you?
A little bit of both. I've run into them gas stations here and there. As far as how you doing, you talk to them, and I've always left that window open to the back side of it. As far as people help me along the way, former technicians that I've worked with, you run into trouble. I've left that window open. Hey, if you run into a problem, call me, and just because tons of factory reps have helped me.
Sure.
I've always left that window open to help somebody else. And so I've had guys call me, hey, I ran into this problem today. Can you help me out? And so I've left that open. Not that there's a lot of offers that come that way through it, but good help's hard to find.
Sure it is.
And so, yeah, I've had multiple offers to, work here, work there, industry-wise.
Okay, so you had 3 other job offers, and then Brady says, hey, you should think about coming here, or gives your name to us and we reach out to you. How does that work?
Brady says, hey, I'm going here. Do you care if I turn your name in and have them call you? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm open to it. So Wyatt called me. We talked, sat down, interviewed.
Wyatt's owner of Any Hour Services. Okay.
Yeah. So I came in and wasn't opposed to it. Like I say,
sorry to interrupt again.
You're good.
How long ago was this? Because how long have you
I've been here for
Any
5.5 years now.
5.5 years. So 5.5 years ago, Wyatt, actually, I guess, how long before we go through that story, how long did it take from when, maybe Wyatt first reached out to you to when you came on board? How long was that process of you making that decision to come on?
It was pretty short.
Pretty short. Okay.
Yeah. For me, for sure. Cause I already had job offers and they were wanting a decision pretty quick.
Okay. Perfect. So Wyatt reaches out to you. Talk to me about how that went.
So we sat down, came in, did a kind of a shop tour.
Okay.
Sat down with him within the first half hour, sitting down with the owner. I was in trouble to some extent. Not that I was in trouble, but I says, Wyatt, I want to work here. I don't want to work anywhere else.
Why?
I was so impressed with the honesty, the integrity, and how he services his customers. Giving them the options and just saying, okay, you decide. It's your house, not I'm going to decide what I'm going to do or fix your equipment. I'm going to totally give you the option to decide.
Okay.
And so me interviewing him was totally the way it was. It wasn't necessarily him interviewing me. It was, okay, why do I want to work here? Because I already had the family taken care of by the other job offers, but I'm like, okay, why do I want to work here? Mm-hmm. But I was very, very impressed within the first 30 minutes of sitting down with Wyatt and saying, okay, why do I want to work here? And thoroughly love it. I don't have any plans ever to go anywhere else. I'm going to finish my career here.
So talk to me. Let's say that someone is either working at some other company right now, or they are looking to get into the trades. You have, 26 years of experience in the trades, and you've worked at several different companies. And you said when you came in here, it was me interviewing Any Hour. So talk like if you're talking to somebody getting into the trade, help them. What types of things do they need to ask? What is that interview of, I want to work for you? What should they be looking for in a company?
Well, the back end side that we were talking about, as far as the education side of it, we do an amazing amount of technical training.
Okay.
Not that we can give you everything you're going to need to know. Mm-hmm. And we still give the opportunity, if they want to go to college and finish through the programs, we'll help them out. Mm-hmm. But as far as, so your education side of it, it'll get taken care of one way or another. What I really enjoy with my career and my career over 26 years so far is working with my hands, but also helping customers. We talk about oftentimes we're going into a scenario where it's not the most pleasant day for the homeowner. They've got a broken system, whatever. And so I always look at it, we go in to make a friend and help them through a really hard time. Something's broke, something's not working, and try to fix the customer and the piece of equipment as well.
Okay, so someone is interviewing a company. Okay, so they'll get the education part figured out. Are there some specific questions they can ask to try and dig into whether that company is going to be a good place to work? Like you said, I liked the philosophy that Wyatt laid out as far as how they take care of the customers. So was there a question that you asked that pulled that out, or was Wyatt just doing like he normally does and just doing a good job of laying out the vision and how we operate and things here?
I think I was more looking at the vision side of it, but also, how do you handle warranties? How do you handle customers? But as far as my experience with the industry, I wanted to know what their philosophy behind taking care of the customer, I guess, was the most important thing for me. Coming in from outside, seeing other companies, seeing how they operate. I want to know, how does the customer get taken care of?
Okay. And what were you looking for? Like when you said, hey, when you're trying to figure out how do you handle warranties, how do you take care of customers, what did you like that was different here that might not have existed at the other places? Like, what did you hear that like was a light bulb moment that was like, okay, that makes sense. I want to be a part of that.
As far as the customer here gets taken care of first. As far as if they have a warranty, if they have a complaint, if they have an issue, we take care of it first. A lot of companies don't do that.
What do they do instead? Because maybe it's because I've been doing this with Any Hour for as long as I have, but like it doesn't make sense to me that there's a different way.
There's a lot of different ways.
Okay, so tell me some of those. How does that contrast? Like, what does that even look like to have somebody that you helped, they call up with a warranty issue, and you're like, maybe later.
Well, and that's what happens is most companies are chasing the dollar. Mm-hmm. And so as far as the peak seasons of summer and winter, they are as busy as they can handle. Most companies are trying to get as much money, if not more money, than they can handle. The reason I say that is I was running 9 service calls a day.
Wow.
And being only 2 technicians, I was on call every other week. Mm-hmm. So I was already burnt out, plus overload of you didn't go home until the calls were done. So I was dropping in every 15 minutes to a customer, diagnose it in 15 minutes, tell them the repair, and hit the road. And I wasn't going thoroughly through their equipment, which happened on a regular basis. So when Wyatt said, no, you'll probably run about 2 to 3 calls a day, I says, what am I going to do for those 8 hours? But I didn't understand their philosophy either, as they were very thorough through the equipment. But also to avoid breakdowns, future breakdowns for the customer, as well as if you do have a breakdown, we are going to you first. Everybody else goes to you last if they can get to you. 9 calls a day on demand calls, meaning your system's broken down. Your warranty, they're going to put you off and may or not get to you, trying to capture the almighty dollar.
That makes sense. And, in their defense, because
sure.
we...
Nothing against them.
Correct. Nothing against them. But like when you are a small company, which it sounds like a lot of the companies that you worked with,
sure.
They were a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
You don't have the extra manpower or the infrastructure really even to put those customers that you've serviced first, because if you do, you are taking revenue off the table that you would have been getting that's going to float you through that slow time.
Absolutely.
And so like I totally get that. And they say, I hear people say like, oh, I want that small company feel, like a customer be like, oh, I want to go with the small company. And sure. You don't always think about, okay, well, what does the back end of servicing that equipment look like? You might get something today, but I actually had a similar experience before we started, running plumbing, before we brought on plumbers and started, doing plumbing. I had a situation where I needed to put a pump in my basement. Like the sewer line was up higher, and so I had to do that. And I went with a smaller company. If I'm being transparent, because the price was better, right, I was like, oh, I can save some money going with this other company.
Sure.
And no joke, a month into like using them, the pump was undersized. It wasn't working properly. And I call them up and I'm like, hey, I'm having issues with this. They were on to the next job. And like, they were like, well, we can get to you this far down. And I'm like, I can't use my bathroom. Sewage is coming up in the shower. Like, sure. You installed this a month ago. Like, what's up? And I ended up having to call somebody else. So like I paid for the job twice, essentially, just to get it done right. And it was a nightmare. But I have empathy for those guys that, like, I'm sure that they wanted to like come and help me. They just didn't have the manpower or the infrastructure to do that. And so
sure,
I like that about Any Hour, that we put those customers first we're able to do that. And by doing that, I don't know, like it just, when you say there's a different philosophy, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And a lot of hands make light work.
Yes.
And being only at the time 2 technicians on call every other week, I was on the on-call rotation, meaning I would sit at home and wait for phone calls and had to be near a phone. I hadn't since No Life every other week.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting to kind of like the tow truck driver going out if there's a broken car on the side of the road. In sense 2, 3 in the morning, get a phone call and had to go, which was my philosophy of service. I didn't mind it, but
Sure.
it does wear on you.
Of course.
Every other week you get extremely burnt out and stuff that way. Whereas, with any hour structure, on-call rotations way less.
So that, I would say that's something to ask about as well as, what do the hours look like? What does the on-call schedule look like when you're doing those types of things? Because when you hire on, you want a job and they're going to paint the best picture possible. You got to identify what some of those like pain points are and ask about what they are, so you can at least go in, with open eyes about what's going to happen there.
Sure.
As far as, we know that there's a shortage of, young people wanting to get into the trades. Why do you think that is?
Well, I've been looking at it as far as a lot of them, when you and I started in the industries, a lot of the philosophy I think was behind, doctors, lawyers, stuff like that, chasing the dollar amount. And there was a shortage going into the industry. Like I say, didn't even know about it till my high school teacher brought it to my attention. But as far as there's not a lot of direction for high school kids to get into the industries or hands-on or stuff. So the way I see it, it's just going to get more and more expensive. We're going to end up being, at least in my opinion, more in the doctor. You're going to specialize, or you're going to be in the doctor category of your field because of the lack of young kids getting into our industry, or the know-how of how do I work on this totally sophisticated unit without going to specialized training. And I see that coming down the road, just like cars.
Sure.
You can't take it to the local mechanic anymore. He doesn't have the computer or the technology to work on it. It's going to get that bad in the future. Big demand.
Sure. And so if someone was, if a young person in high school, so we're big with the teenage crowd, this podcast is.
That's right. The young guys.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe someone's listening and they have like a teenager, and I actually, looking at my boys, like one of them, totally academically, he makes it look so easy. Like sure. I look at like the grades that he gets and how he does stuff, and I'm just like, it was not that easy for me. School's not my jam. But I've got another son that, he's totally capable, but he's a little bit more like me, where he's like easily distracted. And so homework gets, neglected, and he'd rather be doing these other things. And, I actually tell my boys like, hey, look, I am trying to push them into the trades. Whether they make a career out of it or not, sure, is up to them. But I want them to like get in early so that they can at least have a skill. If nothing else, if they decide to go a different route and go to college and do something else, how much money are they going to save being able to like work on stuff at their own house?
Absolutely. And I've saved a fortune.
How much money am I going to save? They can come and fix my stuff. Like right. Our dad doesn't want to do that anymore.
That's right. And I've looked at that. I've been able to, with the exposure of everything, even just HVAC, I've learned a ton about electrical, a ton about plumbing. And not that it's always been done right, but I've saved myself a lot of money over the years.
Right. So, okay, so someone thinking about getting in, what would you say to a young person that is considering it or is in a situation, like you were in high school, where they don't necessarily have a plan? Maybe they just know like, I need to go make some money and I need a good job. Like what would your recommendation to them be?
Well, I'll tell the parents, get your college kids or your high school graduates off your couch, push them into the trades. But as far as there is so many career opportunities in our trades that, like I say, when I got right out of college, I had 20 different career opportunities with heating and air conditioning alone. I'll give you some examples of those. When I was in college, I learned how to work on semi-trailers that run refrigerated produce or store-bought materials that have to stay temperature controlled. How to work on refrigeration units for the reefer trailers, they call them, or refrigerated trailers, to bring produce back and forth. I learned how to work on those. Brief introduction to those. Could have been a career. I could have worked on Disney on ice skating rinks, for instance, and traveled if I would have loved to travel. Yeah. They have refrigerated package units if you love to travel on cargo ships that you have to maintain, stuff like that. But the cool part about being in our industry, we have so many different options as far as fields. You can almost do whatever you want related to heating and air conditioning if you want. I just chose to do residential and service work.
How does someone, like, let's say a parent is listening and they want to like get their kid off the couch and push them into the industry. How does someone that's young break into this? Like, how young can you start this trade?
So as far as 18 is I believe our bottom end of they have to be 18 years old legally to come work for us. I guess it's legally, but as far as
it's legal at 18 for you to work. Yeah.
Yeah. They have to be 18 to work for us. But as far as they can enter with no experience, as far as formal training, we put them with a experienced technician so that they're safe, everything's fine, and then just educate them from the beginning. If they want to pursue a different avenue, after they first get their structure, if they do electrical, they do heating, they can move to plumbing, just whatever their interests are. I would just get them going. I mean, I didn't have any tools when I started, and I got a lot of tools now.
So does a parent or a kid, do they call different construction or plumbing and HVAC and electrical companies and ask like, hey, I've got a teenager that wants to get into the trade. Are you like hiring apprentices? Like how do they go about actually finding that? What were the questions they need to ask when they're calling these companies?
Call us. We're glad to take them. As far as, call and ask if they're hiring, what they're looking at for apprenticeship, what they need, get them in for an interview. That's the biggest thing.
And I'm sure anyone that's listening in Utah, of course they would call any hour.
Absolutely.
But we're a national, worldwide podcast.
Okay.
I think we're ranked number 65 in Uruguay. Is that what it was?
Ship them to us.
Anyway, so okay, so that's really cool. So we'll get to wrapping this thing up real quick. But
no problem.
What's your favorite thing about the industry itself, being in the HVAC industry?
Favorite thing?
Like where do you get the most job satisfaction out of?
I actually get the most job satisfaction is helping customers. Mm-hmm. Going into an environment that they're not experienced with or capable of fixing. Not saying they can't, but being able to just help them. I love customer service. And so part of my role here, even though it's not, I'm still in the field half the time, is helping other technicians do technical support. Mm-hmm. So a lot of guys will call me and say, okay, I've got this problem. I've either seen it, touched it, felt it, whatever. And so I usually able to help them out over the phone. So that's what I enjoy the most now, is just helping other technicians get to my level of experience.
Mm. What do you enjoy most about being here at Any Hour?
I love the culture. I love the background and the support that's offered to the technician, as far as management, office staff. Just, it's so much easier to work here than other companies as far as they stock your trucks at night. The run around headaches that you have. We're showing up with a fully stocked truck. You're not having to run the supply houses. You're not having to. A lot of the back end's taken care of real easy.
So makes your job easier to be able to focus on the part that you like, which is helping customers. They do a lot of support on the back end to help you be able to just stay in front of people.
Oh yeah, way better.
Well, thanks, Dan, for being on the show. It's been a great conversation. Anything you want to say to wrap things up before, all the people listening, you want to give them a shout out? You want to say hi to anybody because you know your family's gonna,
gonna listen.
Actually, I don't know if they will.
Well, yeah, that's all good. I love my wife Diane and the 5 kids I have: Courtney, Curtis, Erica, Chantel, and Autumn.
That's what it's about, right? You gotta take care of that family.
Yep.
Okay, so before we go, we have a segment on the show that I like to do with the technicians. It's called Don't Judge Me. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a series of rapid fire questions. It's actually going to be an either or.
Okay.
Don't overthink it. We don't have to have a conversation about it, but I'm going to go through these things fast. I'll say this or that, and you'll say whichever one you choose, and that's kind of how we'll wrap the show.
Okay.
Okay. It's just a fun little,
Sure.
get to know Dan.
Okay.
Do you have a nickname?
No.
Because as I was coming in this morning, I was like, it'd be fun to like get people's nicknames so that when I introduce them on the show, I could do it a little bit more like, WWF style, like Dan the Man Sorenson, like Dan the, whatever, like, so Dan the Man, like that, man rhymes with Dan, but I didn't know if like Dan the Hammer, Sorenson.
No, I think Richard calls me the repairman.
Dan the repairman. Okay.
I don't know.
We'll have to start asking people, like Mike just wants to know if you have a nickname, and then we surprise them with this big.
They actually call me the Wizard.
Well, that's a nickname.
Sure.
So
yeah,
please welcome
my memory.
Dan the Wizard Sorenson.
There you go.
What's up, Wizard?
How are you?
See, that would have been a cool intro, right?
Sure.
That's my fault for not having this conversation before.
That's okay.
And having this at the end. Anyway, sorry everyone that's listening, you missed out. But if you made it this far, you just got a treat.
There you go.
All right, Wizard, here we go. Here is the Don't Judge Me questions, okay? Spicy or mild?
Spicy.
Water or soda?
Soda.
Country or pop?
Oh, country.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Football or basketball?
Neither. Football.
Okay. Well, no. Hey, that's the second time in a row we've had I don't like your choices. Do you have a sport that? Are you just you don't care about sports, or is there a different sport?
I'm not much of a sports guy. More of an outdoors guy.
Okay.
I like to hunt.
Well, that was the next question. Indoor or outdoors?
Outdoor.
Okay. TV or movies?
TV.
Okay. This will be a fun one. Jim and Pam or Dwight and Angela? You don't know. I saw that coming. Okay, then. Okay, this is my follow-up to that. That's a little bit older. I think we might still. Okay, Ross and Rachel or Chandler and Monica? Nope. Okay, on we go. Bachelor or Bachelorette? That's a TV show, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, Bachelor?
So, Bachelor.
Okay. Bath or shower?
Shower.
Pedicure or manicure?
Neither.
Okay. Flowers or chocolate?
Flowers.
Pizza or burgers?
Burgers.
Does pineapple have any business being on pizza?
Absolutely.
It does.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I personally do as well. That's it, man.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. Again, it was a great conversation. That's the show. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday with a new episode of In the House. If you'd like to know more about Any Hour Services, visit anyhourservices.com. I've been your host, Mike Wilson, and you've been listening to In the House. See ya.